Recovering himself in a multiple, he opened for us two hulking patient cabinets, which had his mass suits and dressing gowns and ties, and his shirts piled with big bricks in stacks a dozen high. I've got a man in England who buys me clothes. He sends over a selection of things at the beginning of each season, spring and fall. He took out a pile of shirts and began throwing them, one by one, before us shirts of sheer linen and thick silk and fine flannel, which lost their folds as they fell and covered the table in many-colored disarray. While we admired, he brought more, and the soft, rich heaped mounted higher, shirts with stripes and scrolls and plaids and coral and apple green and lavender and faint orange and monograms of Indian blue. Suddenly, with a strange sound, Daisy bent her head into the shirts and began to cry stormily. "They're such beautiful shirts," she sobbed, her voice muffled in thick folds. "It makes me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts before." After the house, we were to see the grounds and the swimming pool and the hydroplane and the mid-flowers. Be outside Gatsby's window, it began to rain again, so we stood in a row looking at it corrugated surface of the Sound. "If it wasn't for the mist, we could see your home across the bay," said Gatsby. "You always have a green light that burns all night at the end of your dock." Daisy put her arm through his abruptly, but he seemed absorbed in when he just said possibly it had occurred to him that the colossal significance of the light had now vanished forever. Compared to the great distance that he had separated from Daisy, it had seemed very near to her, almost touching her. It had seemed as close as a star to the moon. Now it was again a green light at the dock. His count of enchanted objects had diminished by one. I began to walk about the room, examining various indefinite objects in the half-darkness. A large photograph of an elderly man in yachting costume attracted me, hung on the wall over his desk. "Who's this?" That's Mr. Dan Cody, old sport." "That name sounds faintly familiar." "He's dead now. He used to be my best friend years ago." There's a small picture of Gatsby, also in yachting costume, on the bureau. Gatsby with his head down, his head thrown back definitely, taken apparently when he was about 18. "I adored it," exclaimed Daisy. "The Pompadour. You never told me you had a Pompadour or a yacht." "Look at this," said Gatsby quickly. "Here's a lot of clippings about you." They stood side by side examining it. I was going to ask to see the rubies when the phone rang, and Gatsby took up the receiver. "Yes, well, I can't talk now, old sport. I said a small town. He must know what a small town is. Well, he's no use of it to us if Detroit is his idea of a small town." He rang off. "Come here quick," cried Daisy at the window. The rain was still falling, but the darkness had parted in the west, and there was a pink and golden billow of foamy clouds above the sea. "Look at that," she whispered, and then after a moment, "I'd like to just get one of those pink clouds and put you in it and push you around. I tried to go then, but you wouldn't hear of it. Perhaps my presence made them feel more satisfactorily than alone." "I know what we'll do," said Gatsby. "We'll have Klipspringer play the piano." He went out of the room, mewing, and returned in a few minutes, accompanied by an embarrassed, slightly worn young man with shrill-rimmed glasses and scaly blonde hair. He was now decently clothed in a sport shirt, open at the neck, sneakers, and duck trousers of a nebulous hue. "Did we interrupt you exercises?" inquired Daisy politely. "I was asleep," cried Mr. Klipspringer in a spasm of embarrassment. "That is, I've been asleep. Then I got up." "Klipspringer plays the piano," said Gatsby, cutting him off. "Don't you, Ewing, old sport?" "I don't play well. I hardly play at all. I'm all out of prac." "We'll go downstairs," interrupted Gatsby. He flipped a switch. The gray windows disappeared as the house glowed full of light. In the music room, Gatsby turned on a solitary lamp beside the piano. He lit Daisy's cigarette from a trembling match and sat down with her on the couch far across the room, where there was no light save when the gleaming floor bounced in from the hall. When Klipspringer had played the Love Nest, he turned around on the bench and searched unhappily for Gatsby in the gloom. "I'm all out of practice, you see. I told you I couldn't play. I'm all out of prac." "Don't talk so much, old sport," commanded Gatsby. "Play." "In the morning, in the evening, and we got fun. Outside, the wind was loud, and there was a faint flow of thunder along the sound. All lights were going on in the West Egg now. The electric trains, men carrying, were plunging home throughout the rain from New York. It was an hour of profound human change, and excitement was generating on the air. One thing's sure and nothing's sure. The rich got richer and the poor get children. In the meantime, in between time. As I went over to say goodbye, I saw the expression of bewilderment had come back into Gatsby's face, as though a faint doubt had occurred to him as the quality of his present happiness almost 5 years. There must have been moments even in the afternoon when Daisy trembled short of those dreams, not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion. It had gone beyond her, beyond everything. He had thrown himself into it with a creative passion, adding it to all the time, decking it out with every bright feather that drifted his way. No amount of fire or freshness can challenge what a man will store up in his ghostly heart. As I watched him, he adjusted himself a little visibly. His hand took hold of hers, and as she said something low in his ear, he turned toward her with a rush of emotion. I think that voice held him most, with it fluctuating, feverish warmth, because it couldn't be overdreamt. That voice was a deathless song. They had forgotten me, but Daisy glanced up and held out her hand. Gatsby didn't know me now at all. I looked once more at them, and they looked back at me, remotely, possessed by intense life. Then I went out of the room and down by the marble steps into the rain, leaving them there together. The end of chapter 5.